Hi, this is Cherylann Mollen for the Hindustan Times, and I have with me Forrest Gander, who won the Pulitzer Prize last year for his work Be With. Forrest, let's start off by you telling us a little bit about your upcoming book, Twice Alive, especially the significance of the name and the idea, the driving idea behind it.
So, Twice Alive, which is influenced by Sangam literature, is also very focused on ecology and on lichen, which, as it turns out, is a combination between an algae and or cyanobacteria and a fungus. But when they get together, they give up the lives that they had, the properties that they have, to become something different. And as it turns out, according to one of America's most famous mycologists, Anne Pringle, it may be that lichen do not age, and that our sense of aging and death, as the mammals that you and I are, is based on mammals, and that maybe some things are relatively immortal. And that made me think of human intimacy, of two things that come together as individuals, they become something bigger together, and something that lasts for a long time. So the book is about ecology and human intimacy.
I also found it interesting that you used the life cycle of a lichen to as a metaphor for human intimacy. I'm just curious about how did you come across this organism, and when and how did it spark your poetic imagination?
So, as you may know, I have a degree in geology, and I've always been interested in biology and the sciences. And, um, and because that interest has been provoked, like it has for a lot of people around the world, by the crisis, the environmental crisis that we're in, where species are disappearing so rapidly and the world is changing so rapidly, um, that it seemed like an important time. It seems like the biggest problem of our time, and and so for a lot of people, writers facing this crisis, we feel some responsibility to address it in some way.
What I also found interesting was, and we seen a poetic film of yours, Sangam Acoustics, and actually had come across it on your YouTube channel as well. So I found it very interesting because it combines poetry with visuals. It's interspersed by natural sounds. So tell me about this format. Why did you choose this format to tell your poetry?
So just in the same way that I'm interested in all of the genres, I write essays and I translate and I write novels and I write poetry. I'm interested in other arts also, and film in particular, sort of slow film, as opposed to the kind of rapid incoming, fast cuts of a lot of the films that you and I watch. Um, so it seemed like it, it seems like a natural extension. I'm still trying to spread my wings and learn new arts. And though the basis of what I do will always be poetry, I'm interested in exploring.
You spoke about how Sangam literature has impacted this upcoming work of yours. Could you tell me a little bit about how you discovered Sangam poetry and the kind of bearing it has on your upcoming book?
Yeah, so this thing that people are calling eco-poetry, which um, began to flourish all around the world almost at the same time, about 10 years ago or a little more, um, and among whose major proponents were women from the very beginning, is part of a way of trying to think about writing that may imagine a different kind of relationship with the world than just that we're different from everything else and we control it all. And so the ecopoetics is looking at a way where we find that what we are, and you and I are composed of lots of organisms besides just human organisms. There's parasites in our stomach. There are, worlds of bacteria under our arms and behind our knees. And even in our DNA, there's the DNA of other animals that long ago became incorporated into us. That sense that we're not individuals, but that we're connected to the world, is the sense of eco-poetics. And the question that you asked me,
about Sangam poetry and how, yeah, but that Sangam poetry too does this. There is this interconnectedness. Maybe you want to talk about that?
that's the fantastic thing about, I mean, there's the Puram in Sangam poetry, which is mostly about praise for heroic deeds and kings and war. But the other trajectory of Sangam poetry does exactly what a lot of eco poets are talking about. It sees human subjectivity and our emotions in relationship to the actual environment around us, seeing that the environment is involved in our emotions. That's really thrilling.
Forrest, would you like to recite something for us that you have and tell us a little bit about what you will be reading for us?
So this is a poem called Immigrant Sea. In the Sangam tradition, there are 5 major landscapes. The sea is one of them. And what I've done in my poetry, since I'm writing so long after and at a different place, I've translated the sort of Sangam environment to the environment that I live in. So it's California, but it's the same 5 basic regions. This is one that takes place by the sea. So it's kind of a love poem, kind of a poem about immigrants, and also a poem about landscape being involved in those things. It's called Immigrant Sea. Aroused by her inaccessibility, he aches for more of her life to live inside him. Watching the breakers, standing so close he can feel heat coming off her wet scalp. What is his relation to this person before him, so familiar and foreign? The way he searches out her face, he searches out himself. Gusts thrash crests of swell, spring grasses twirl circles in the sand, where they stand without speaking. She wants him to know it's all charged, even grass positive, pollen negative, so when grass waves, it sweeps the air for pollen. He feels electricity all around, as though the wild drama of the coming storm were already aware of them, foreigners on this shore. Little sapphire blue flowers speckle the dunes. He wonders if he has let himself flatten out into a depthless sheet like escalator stairs, whether in the end he'll disappear underground without the smallest lurch of resistance. But when her lavish face turns toward him, beaming, the corner of her eyes wind wet, he yields to that excess. He reappears to himself.
Thank you so much, Forrest, for reciting that. Watching you read that was just as enjoyable as hearing the poetry itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the interview.